of taking a trip across the Hawkeye State but do not have the time or resources to do so? Then Iowanderlust is the place to be. Hello there, fellow road trippers. I'm your tour guide, William Wright, and it is my pleasure to take you on an adventure exploring all the incredible landmarks and key points that make Iowa the state to visit. Today's journey takes us across 3 vibrant communities, all just minutes south of the Des Moines Metro. This is a real favorite of mine because I am not afraid to get a taste of the small town life these 3 cities have to offer, even if they're a bit too large to be considered small. Come along with me as we drive into Iowanderlust Episode 3, Tulips, Bridges, and Balloons. Oh my. Our adventure begins in the vibrant community of Winterset. Winterset, the county seat of Madison County. And Madison County alone is considered to be the covered bridge capital of Iowa, as it houses 6 original bridges that date back to over a century, having been built in the 1910s. Go on a hike and explore a bunch of these covered bridges for yourself because they are a treat to wander through, especially in comparison to the large bridges on the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. Winterset is also known for being the birthplace of one of the most famous Iowa natives of all time. His name is John Wayne. Well, actually, his real name was Marion Michael Morrison. He was born in Winterset. He was starred in a bunch of Western movies, including Stagecoach and Red River. He even won an Oscar in 1969 for his role as Rooster Cogburn in True Grit. You can find his home out in the south part of Winterset, where there's also a museum dedicated to the life and legacy of this famous Iowa Western star. The Bridges of Madison County was even adopted into a musical and a movie that has become famous throughout the state of Iowa, even though it does have quite a controversial message. Also in Winterset, along the Winterset area, you will see the Winterset City Park. The Winterset City Park also features several covered bridges and a pretty significantly sized walking trail which leads down to Clark Tower, a famous European-style turret that has attracted many visitors to Winterset, well, along with the covered bridges in the John Wayne birthplace. And of course, since it's the smallest of the 3 towns, you have to check out Winterset's Town Square. They have a quilting museum on the south side of the town square. And of course, Winterset's Town Square is defined by the mighty Madison County Courthouse, which has a dome. It recently underwent a very significant upgrade process this year, and it is expected to open later this year. The Madison County Courthouse is among the most vibrant courthouses of any Iowa County courthouse there is in the state. And now we get down to the Raccoon River. Of course, Winterset is built along the Raccoon River, as the Winterset Huskies are members of the Raccoon River Conference. In fact, the Huskies have been 4A softball powerhouses the past few years, winning back-to-back state titles in 2022 and 2023. So Winterset, the first stop on our whip tour, the Bridges, Balloons, and Windmills, oh my, tour, and we still have 2 more towns to go. We'll catch up with Indianola coming up right after this in Iowanderlust. Moving eastward this time, we go from Winterset, the smallest of the communities on this tour, to the largest, Indianola, the county seat of Warren County, which is one tier south of Polk County, the largest county in Iowa by population. And of course, it's home to the Des Moines metropolitan area. Indianola, while not part of the Des Moines metro, still has a lot of culture to be reckoned with. First of all, Indianola is synonymous with hot air balloons. You know why? Because Indianola is the home of the annual National Balloon Classic. The event was first put on in the 1970s when Indianola was tapped to put on the fifth United States National Hot Air Balloon Championship, and it stayed in Indianola for the next 18 years. The National Balloon Classic, as we know it today, started in 1989 when the competition moved to Baton Rouge, the capital of Louisiana. It has continued every year except for 2020 when it was pulled off by the COVID-19 pandemic. Events included of course, the standard balloon races, but we also have a Balloon Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And there is also a night glow, which is where the hot air balloons get to release the air from their burners after dusk to create that spectacular glowing effect on the ground. However, this is not the only main draw for the National Balloon Classic. There's also a dawn patrol that takes place by daybreak, which is essentially the exact opposite of the night glow. It takes place at dawn instead of dusk. It is held at the Memorial Balloon Field just to the west of Indianola, and you can see it on late July and early August is when the event is put on. It is truly an event that you won't want to miss. However, Indianola is not known just for the National Balloon Classic. In fact, there's more to ballooning than just the National Balloon Classic. The National Balloon Museum is also headquartered in Indianola. It's structurally very, very impressive. It's meant to replicate the gondola of a hot air balloon, which is pretty neat. And all of the museum's exhibits are based on hot air ballooning and gas ballooning, and it is only one of two ballooning museums in the United States, the only other one being the Anderson Abruzzo Albuquerque International Balloon Museum, which, of course, is synonymous with the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta, the nation's largest balloon festival. It was erected in 1975, 5 years after Indianola was given the rights to the National Hot Air Balloon Championship. And 24,000 people visit the museum annually, which is a lot of fun because I think my brother really enjoys hot air balloons. So he'll be very happy with that. And the U.S. Ballooning Hall of Fame started up in 2004 with the first Paul E. Yost being inducted in that year. So it's celebrating its 20th year this year. And the National Ballooning Hall of Fame is only adds to Indianola's ballooning heritage. However, Indianola is home to a lot more than just ballooning. We also have the Des Moines Metro Opera, which is the opera company based in Indianola, which is 12 miles south of Des Moines. And during its annual summer festival, they perform three main stage operas and rolling repertory throughout June and July. A lot of the company's opera productions are performed at the Blank Center for the Performing Arts, which is on the campus of Simpson College, which we'll get to in a minute. The company's first performance of an opera was Tosca in 1998. That was their first production in a language other than English. So be sure to check out the Des Moines Metro Opera, especially since opera is is relatively unpopular in the United States than it is over in Europe. That being said, I have gone to several University of Iowa opera productions, so it's pretty popular there as well. And last but not least, for the attractions that Indianola has to offer is the campus of Simpson College, a private four-year Methodist university in Indianola, enrolling over 1,000 students. Its colors are red and gold, and their athletic nickname is the Storm. In fact, they did have the station SC logo as the University of Southern California, which filed a lawsuit against them. I don't know who had them first, but you have the Simpson Storm and the several notable graduates included George Washington Carver. He was a notable graduate of Simpson College. He was an agricultural scientist and inventor who promoted alternative crops to cotton and methods to prevent soil depletion. So he was one of the most famous graduates of Simpson College. It's one of many 4-year private schools in NCAA Division III across the state. We actually have another one coming up later on in Pella. So stick around to see Pella, the most vibrant of all of the communities, and also the only one of these that I haven't been to. Coming up right here on Iowanderlust. In our journey eastward, we have made it to the great city of Pella. Oh, Pella. The history of Pella began in August of 1847 when a group of more than 700 Dutchmen, under the leadership of Dominee Hendrik Piet Schulte, sought a new home and religious freedom. They crossed the Atlantic in 4 sailing vessels and landed in Baltimore, Maryland. They traveled inland by boat down the Ohio River to St. Louis, Missouri, and up the Mississippi to Keokuk. From Keokuk, they made their way by wagon to the site that Schulte had chosen and named Pella, meaning City of Refuge. This town's annual festival, called Tulip Time, grew from the citizens' desire to honor these founding fathers and keep their traditions of their culture alive. It began as an operetta presented by the students of Pella High School in April of 1935. At the meeting of the Chamber of Commerce during that time, plans were made for the first Tulip Time, a one-day affair to be held in May of the same year. Since Pella was not yet a tulip town, the planners commissioned a cabinet maker to make wooden tulips for the initial Tulip Time festival, each measuring 3 feet tall. However, it was resolved that in the fall of 1935, thousands of tulip bulbs would be planted to provide natural color for future festivals. The historic first Tulip Time, though on a smaller scale, set the pattern for all festivals presented thereafter. The festival thrived through the 1930s. In the 1940s, despite World War II difficulties, the celebration was still held. In recognition of Pella's contribution of more than $100,000 in relief funds to war-torn Holland, the Holland Flower Bulb Growers Association presented 25,000 tulip bulbs to the community, which were used in the initial planting of the formal tulip gardens at Pella. Tulip time is many things. The decorated costumes, wooden shoes, thousands of brightly colored tulips, dust patrons and meats, Dutch singing and dancing, street scrubbers, windmills, and parades. Tulip time is a time for celebration and reflection, but above all, tulip time is a beautiful time in Pella. In fact, Pella is a lot more than the tulips. You can also see several historic landmarks going on throughout Pella. Here are a few of them. Pella is home to the Pella Historic Village, which is a collage of 21 buildings, some of which are 100 years old, and others built later or moved in and restored. And the Schultz House, built in 1847. And the wallpaper of that house was ordered from Paris, and the Brussels carpet, which late about 1850. In Pella, we also have the the Tulip Time Festival is held in May, with this community celebrating their Dutch heritage. Pella is also home to a massive windmill called the Vermeer Mill. If you never know what those windmills are famous for. The Netherlands is very famous for its windmills and tulip fields, and you can get a taste of this Dutch heritage right in Pella. Pella is also home to the Central College, a Reformed Presbyterian college set up by the Dutch Reformed Church in Pella, and whose mascot is the Dutch. Their athletic nickname is the Dutch. And the same applies for Pella High School. In fact, Pella High School was originally named the Little Duck. Not sure why Pella Christian chose the Eagles. But anyways, Pella is also home to a massive corporation, the Vermeer Corporation. And the Vermeer Corporation is responsible for producing a bunch of agricultural equipment. I've seen a bunch of their balers in use when I was at home in Bellevue, being pulled by John Deere tractors and other equipment. Vermeer is one of several companies based in Pella, the other being the Pella Corporation, which is it's a place where housing equipment such as windows are being built. There's also an outlet out in Carroll. Pella's high school marching band is historically thought of as one of the best high school marching bands in the state. They even made it to the 2023 Rose Parade. Pella is a vibrant community, and this is no less evident in their town square, which shows off their Dutch pride. In fact, during tulip time, the flags of all the Dutch provinces and overseas territories are flown proudly from the central square, where, of course, thousands of tulips are in bloom, in full bloom, in the central part of the city where Dutch heritage comes alive. Central College is mainly rivals with Coe College and a bunch of other Class Division III schools in NCAA. We've talked about Simpson College earlier. Central College is another NCAA Division III school in Iowa. However, this is not the only location in Iowa where a foreign group of people have sought religious freedom. There's also the Amana colonies, which were set up. It's a place like no other in the world. They were settled by a group of German craftsmen and scholars bound on a common religious belief. Seeking religious freedom and from persecution in 1843, the group left Germany for America, pooling their money to buy land in the New York state. When more farmland was needed, the group moved to Iowa and established the Amana colonies. The first village, Amana, was founded in 1855. By 1862, 5 more villages were laid out. The town site of Homestead was purchased because it had a new Mississippi and Missouri railroad station, and the community needed it to ship goods to outside markets. The Amana settlers built the 7 villages with the urban area in mind, locating the villages several miles apart for convenient farming of the 26,000 acres of timber and farmland. With a singular style, using building materials at hand, they built homes, churches, factories, and craft shops. The 7 Amana villages are Amana, joined by East Amana, Middle Amana, High Amana, West Amana, South Amana, and Homestead. Everything was owned in common, continuing the practice of religious communal living established in New York. The communal way of life meant that colonists worked together, ate together, and worshiped together. Life was governed by a village, Bruderhacht, who ruled on everything from housing and job assignments to farm planning schedules. Religious life was a strong unifying factor as colonists attended church 11 times during the week. The pressures of modern America and the Great Depression combined to force the Amana people to set aside the communal way in 1932. There is a common misconception that the Amana people are Amish. However, there are no Amish in Amana. What seems to be a clear distinction between the two sects is often muddled simply because the names sound alike. Currently, the Amana colonies are the #1 visitor attraction in Iowa, and I think we all can assume we are living in an Amana paradise located west to the northwest of Iowa City, which I covered in the last episode. I forgot to include the Amana colonies when talking about Iowa City. So that's why I included it here, also because they are a similar group to Pella, a European group seeking religious freedom in the United States. In fact, that is part of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Amana colonies are without a doubt one of the most unique and storied sites in all of Iowa. But now moving on to a bit of a personal opinion. One of my favorite sites in Iowa comes from not even a large town. It's a very teeny tiny town, stereotypical of any Iowa small town. Coming up right here on Iowanderlust episode 3. Expect us to continue our Iowanderlust adventures, but here we go again. This time to a much smaller community than Winterset or Indianola or Pella. It's Brooklyn, a tiny town located in Poweshiek County. Now you may be thinking, why the heck am I talking about Brooklyn? Their school is combined K through 12 in a single building, and they field an 8-man team in football. Brooklyn cannot possibly be on the map. Well, I'll prove you wrong, folks. Brooklyn is home of the Community of Flags display. It is a massive flag display which features the flags of all 50 U.S. states, not just Iowa, but the other 49. And I've been in love with flags ever since I was a little child, so getting the opportunity to drive by and stop by this flag display in Brooklyn in 2019 was a real pleasure of mine. So if you have the opportunity to stop by and pay your respects to our country, you have reached your destination here in Brooklyn with a 20 by 38-foot American flag flying high above all the others. In addition to the flags of all 6 of the armed forces of the United States surrounding it, and several organizational flags displayed alongside the state flags in that same display. You get to downtown Brooklyn and you see even more fanatics in the Flag Store, the Community of Flag Store located again in downtown Brooklyn, which is sparkled with a bunch of flags from different nations. I recall seeing the flag of Australia downtown Brooklyn, but the Community of Flag Store has more than just the iconic stick flags that I collected. I collected 6 flags to my iconic collection of more than 200 now at this point. And that just goes to show my deep love of flags. And you'll have to stay tuned for my next podcast, Unfurled, where I go way in depth about all things flags. You would hear me talk about the flags of all 50 US states and ranking them based on my preferences, of course. But in all seriousness, Brooklyn is a cute little town. However, it has made major news in 2018 when a teenager by the name of Molly Tibbetts was reported missing. So that there's a dark side to this small town of Brooklyn. The BGM Bears compete in the South Iowa Cedar League, and in football, they're 8-man District 6 this year, but did not make the playoffs, unfortunately. However, Brooklyn is not the only place where you could find the 50 state flags um lining the main street, as Indianola has its own display of state flags for all the states represented in the National Balloon Classic when the National Balloon Classic is going on. That being said, it's not a permanent display like the one Brooklyn has. And there are several communities in Iowa that have larger American flags. I mean, take the Camping World outside of Cedar Falls, that has a much larger American flag. But Brooklyn takes pride in all of its flag displays, and thus is dubbed the Community of Flags for that reason. Apologies for the poor audio quality for the past 3 episodes, as my computer has lagged at the default rate of 48,000 hertz. So I had to go to 24,000 hertz, which is super low. But then again, you will get to stick around for Iowa Wanderlust episode 4, storied and scenic western coast of Iowa, alongside the Missouri River. We'll take you down Council Bluffs and Sioux City, plus some unique stops along the way. It's been an epic journey here in Iowa Wanderlust, and I cannot thank you enough for joining this podcast. Until then, I wish you all the best and explore Iowa yourself in the only ways Iowas can. So get out there and start exploring and find your Iowanderlust.